This lesson we're going to talk about the rates and dimensional analysis. So first thing we wanted to go over rate, we need to know what rate is. So rate is the ratio of two quantities, and unit rate is the rate with the denominator of 1. Example 1, your car can drive 300 miles on a tank of 15 gallons. Express this as the rate. So show this information into the rate and write into the unit rate in mile per gallons. So they want you to put mile on the numerator and gallon on the denominator. That's how mile per gallon works, right? So if we do that, let's see. 300 miles over 15 gallons. This is going to be your rate in a fraction form, right? And if we change this into reduced forms, so 15 goes into 320 times, right? So it will be 20 mile per gallon. This is going to be your unit rate, where your denominator is 1, right? So if we're looking at example 2, what they're asking is compare the electricity usage between China and Japan, and this is the information given. When you're comparing the usage, the China is using 4.693 trillions. Japan is using 59.7 billions. So look like as amount itself, China is used more. But then you also need to compare how many people are living in different countries, right? The populations. So here is the populations from the China, and this is populations from the Japans. So obviously Chinese population is way bigger than the Japanese populations. So if we wanted to write this into rate and unit rate, you will have, let me see. So let's do China comparison. So we will have 4.693 trillion kilowatts per hour, and then populations. And then Japan, it will be 859.7 billions, right? Kilowatts per hour, and populations. So this is going to be rate comparing between those two countries. But then once you find the unit rate by dividing those numbers, that's the value you have. So even though the China used more electricity, but when you're finding a unit rate per person, look like Japan is using more, almost double, right? Almost double. And that's what you can find out using rate and unit rate in that problem. Example 3. It says your car can drive 300 miles on a tank of 15 gallons. How far can it drive on 40 gallons? How many gallons are needed to drive 50 miles? So basically you have two different questions, right? Trying to find out how many miles can drive with 40 gallons, or with how many gallons will be needed to drive 50 miles. So two questions. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to separate into two areas. In order to find the first questions, this is going to be the same car they're talking about. The car that will drive 300 miles with 15 gallons. With the same car, which means same rate. If we have a same rate, we should be able to use proportion method. So it'll be 300 miles. You can driving you will have 15 gallons, right? Equals to, so on the other side of fraction, you do the same thing. Mile on the numerators, gallon on denominator, right? And they wanted to have 40 miles, and they wanted to trying to find out how many miles can be drive. So in this case, we call this is proportion method. Fraction equals to one fraction equals to one other fraction on the other side. In that case, when we do the cross multiplication, it should be always be equals to. So that way, you're going to have 300 times 40 will be equals to 15 times x. So in order to isolate x, you need to divide by 15. So x should be 300 times 40 divided by 15. You could do all that in once on your calculator, or you can do it by hands. And it will give you 800 miles. So the same car that can drive 300 miles with 15 gallons, it will drive 800 miles with 40 gallons, right? So let's try to answer the second part. It say how many gallons will needed to drive 50 miles. So since again, same units, right? Same rate, because we're talking about the same car. So we put 300 miles. So this is going to be base rate, right? Basic rate. And what we're trying to find out is 50 miles is given. We wanted to figure out how many gallons will be needed, right? So when we do the cross multiplication again, this time let's try to put number with the variable on the right side. So it will be 300 times x. And 15 times 50. So x, when I isolate it, you need to divide both sides by 300. And when you plug in those numbers into the calculator, this comes out to be 750 divided by 300. So that gives you 2.5 gallons. So you will need 2.5 gallons in order to drive 50 miles. What about next one? It's a bicycle is traveling at 15 miles per hour. How many feet will cover in 20 seconds, right? So you have a mile per hour, but then you need to try to figure out the feet in seconds, right? So this is going to be also unit change. So we have 15 mile per hour means over 1 hour, right? we wanted to multiply this by, let's try to get rid of, well, so we're trying to convert from miles to feet. So let's put mile to feet. So that mile will be canceled out. And we know that 5,280 feet is equals to 1 mile. So we got the feet on the numerator, and we need to get seconds. We have hours. So how do we change or get rid of hour? Here, your hour is on denominator, so your hour should be on the numerator, so you can cancel it. We know the hours and minutes comparing. We know 1 hour is 60 minutes. But again, we're trying to make minutes into seconds. So 1 minute is 60 seconds. So that minute and minute will cancel out. You will have seconds. Numerator will be feet, denominator will be seconds. So this is the multiplication you're going to have. So on the numerator, you get 15 times 5,280 times 1 is numerator, and unit holding is feet, and denominator is 1 time 60 times 60, right? You will end up getting that, right? And when you use calculator, you will end up getting 22 feet per second, right? And then what you're going to do on top of this is per 1 second, right? This is going to be 1 second, but they wanted to find out in 20 seconds. What you need to do is 22 times 20. So that will give you 440 feet in 20 seconds is what you're going to end up getting. Example 5. So example 5 is asking to compare these two different types of tubing A and B, and see which one is less expensive, right? Which one is less expensive. And what I notice is one is with the yard, the other one is with the feet. So we wanted to make sure to change it into the same unit so the comparison will be the same, right? So the first thing I wanted to do, let's see, 3 yard is $5.49, and I wanted to find out per yard price for that, right? So what I'll do is dividing. This will give you not the 3 yard, but per yard, each yard pricing. So when I divide those two numbers, I get $1.83 per yard. So I have one with the yard, dollar per yard. So next one, I need to get the same thing. So what I have, I need to put dollar on the numerator. Over 2 feet. But then because we also not just converting per unit, how much is per unit, but I also wanted to change the feet into the yard, so we need to also multiply this by 3 feet over 1 yard. So the unit is going to be same units as the other compare ones, right? So then you're going to do 1.88 times 3 divided by 2, which you end up getting dollar on the numerator. So it will be $2.82 per yard is only thing remaining on denominator, right? This is remaining yard. So that's the per yard pricing for the second options. And look like A is less expensive. Option A. Okay, let's look at one more example from this section. When you're looking at example 6, you can see this is comparison gasoline price, right? Here, Arizona is $2.05 per gallon. And then when you go to Mexico, this is the price of the gasoline per liter. So because it's different country, they use the different units. We wanted to compare it, and this gives you the unit changes from dollars. So let's see what we can do. We're going to write $2, what it's given, right? First, $2.05 per gallon. And I'm going to try to change this into the same unit as the gasoline in Mexico, right? So then in order to change that, this comparison shows that I could do 18.68 over $1, right? So that way that this unit will cancel, right? So this unit, dollar unit will be canceled. And then I will multiply again to change the gallon to liter, right? So gallon to liter, we know 1 gallon is equals to 3.8 liter. So that way, the gallon will be canceled. So it will be only the same unit remaining as the Mexico, right? So it means on the numerator, you're going to multiply 2.05 times 18.68 times 1. Denominator is going to be dividing by 3.8. So multiply these two numbers and divide by 3.8. You will end up getting 10.08 units, the same units as the Mexico gasoline price. So when you're comparing with 14.81, 10.08, it will say Mexico is more expensive.